mine, and happiness was on mine. Hey, Lois. Marriage can win. Hey, Alex. By the love that Jesus has given me. Letting folks come in. Welcome to the room. Be free. Hey. Let me turn this around. Another car chronicle. Oh, hey, Eric. How are you? Let me turn my radio down. How are you all doing today? I'm trying to prop this thing up, y'all, so we can talk a little bit. How are you all doing today? Good. And you are blessed. Yes. Thank you so much. I'm so excited about Marriage Can Win. And you and Dr. Sakisha. Good stuff coming down the pipe. They better get ready for y'all. They better get ready. Welcome. Busy past few days for me. Okay, good. Busy is good. Be careful. No, actually, I'm parked. I'm just out running errands and decided to stop so I can do my afternoon scope. I'm never driving and doing this. I don't have a mount for my car either, so it's like, nope. I park my car. I don't want anything crazy happening at all. Oh yeah, most definitely. I hope I get a chance to make it to y'all book signing or something. I don't know. We'll see what the Lord says. But welcome to the room, everybody. Actually, I'm doing this scope first of all. Because I told you guys I was going to start being back on here regularly. And I know it's an odd time of the day. I had to nail down a regular good time. You know how your day can kind of get away from you? I had to nail down a good time. And I try to always pick the daytime, but I never look at my clock to see what it is. So I have to nail down a good time. So, we'll figure it out. You just have to keep trying till you nail the right time, right? But thank you for the hearts. But let me go ahead and introduce myself. This question came up this morning from a friend of mine out in California. I hope she hops on here because I want her to be able to hear the answer. But of course, to the replayers, those of you who catch this in replay, I appreciate it if you go ahead and if you heart me up in the replay, because your heart still count even in the replay, and that you share it with your audience as well. And this is a fairly big topic, so I'm probably going to be talking about this for the next couple of days, because you really can't explain and talk about the Fair Labor Standards Act and exempt and non-exempt in just a quick scope. So I want to at least start. So this may be a part 1, 2, and 3, or a part 1 and 2. You just never know. But I know it's going to be definitely have to be more than one discussion. All right. So I am Delmar Johnson, president of Delmar Johnson Enterprise, and I am your chief HR brain with HR Brain for Hire. So welcome to the room. Make sure that you share it with your audience. And if anybody is connected to Kiana Shaw, actually share it specifically with her, because I want her to be able to chime in. Hey, you go, girl. I want her to be able to chime in specifically, but she'll definitely be able to catch it on a replay if she doesn't catch it live. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about exempt versus non-exempt or hourly employees. And the question she had was, and she sent me a Facebook message and asked me, Delmar, what is truly the difference between a salary exempt and a non-exempt hourly employee? Like, how does the lunchtime work? How does time off work and stuff like that? So that's why I know I got all kind of notes in my car. And that's why I know this scope would have to be more than one, because this is a very big subject. And can be, and I don't want to bog it down, with all kind of technical terms and stuff. So I'm going to try to make it as simplified as possible, just so it can be, how you try to make things plain language versus what the, the legalities are of things when it comes to employment laws. But to make it as simple as possible, and like, cause I'm gonna be reading my notes too, because I don't want to make any mistakes with you guys. Okay, most employees are going to be governed. Thanks for sharing, Eric. Most employees are going to be governed under the Fair Labor Standards Act. Let's start right there. Most companies are going to be governed by that. There are some positions that do not fall under Fair Labor Standards Act, and I don't want to get too far into that, but just to give you a couple of examples. Railroad workers and truck drivers have a different kind of labor law or a different kind of employment law that an employer will have to go by. But most of us will fall under the regular Fair Labor Standards Act for exempt and non-exempt hourly kind of rules. Okay, so let's start there. So by definition, employees who are governed by, again, are going to either be exempt or non-exempt. It would be a cool mini series, great marketing for you. Exactly. That's why I say it would take more than one, Periscope. I'm actually going to do a webinar that kind of really breaks this down a little bit better. So therefore, there's a longer time for me to be able to have discussion and questions and Q&A. So that may be something I'll call and have you help me with, Lois. Okay. So so I'm going to do a webinar on it. But as a Periscope, I want to do answer a few questions that's been asked to me, offline. So I thought that'd be good to at least start with that. So an exempt person, all right, let me get to my notes, because an exempt person is usually exempt from overtime. Okay, thanks, Lois. Usually exempt from overtime, whereas an hourly person, you qualify for overtime over 40 hours during a work week. Okay, over 40 hours during a work week, you qualify. Now, a lot of, not too long ago, recently I've had conversations with small business owners to say, hey, if I get employees or bring part-time workers in or whatever, I just want to make them exempt so I don't have to pay overtime. Stop. That is not why you make people exempt. So you want to, so you can avoid paying overtime, especially if you wind up bringing on a full-time employees. Now, part-time employees, don't qualify for overtime because they're not working 40 hours a week. Part-timers, 5 hours, 10 hours, 15 hours. As long as it's less than 40 hours a week, or in some cases less than 37 and a half hours a week, they're part-time, then the overtime rule doesn't apply to them. But there have been people that have asked me, hey, if I bring on a full-time employee, can I just make them exempt to avoid overtime pay? Again, don't do that. There's a reason why somebody's going to be exempt, and there's a reason why somebody's going to be hourly. I will tell you that the majority of employees across this country, there's a lot of employees in this country, right? 333 million people in this country. So a lot of those people are employed, are going to probably fall under non-exempt status. Okay, there's actually three things that you go by. Love the sound effect. Oh, good. I'm glad it sounds good. There are three things that you would go by in determining whether a person is exempt or not. Okay, so let me read those to you so I won't mess up. So for most employees, whether they are exempt or non-exempt depends on how much they are paid. That's number one. Depends on how much they're paid, how they are paid, and what kind of work that they do. So it's more than you trying to avoid paying overtime payment. Those are three guidelines that you go by, whether exempt or non-exempt. Again, how much they're paid, how they're paid, and what kind of work that they do. Is this federal or state? I'm speaking from a federal standpoint, Eric. I'm speaking from a federal standpoint. The Fair Labor Standards Act. Yeah, I'm speaking from a federal standpoint. Yeah, because sometimes states will have a different rule. So I just do it from a federal, just to give an overall umbrella of what the government is going to look for as far as employment is concerned. And I know in some states, some things can be different by the state. So we're going to look at it from a federal standpoint. So let me see, where am I at with my notes? Okay, to be exempt. Okay, we're still talking about exempt. Those are the three rules that you have to go by, okay, to determine whether exempt or non-exempt. Now, even further for an exempt, there is what's called a FLSA exemption test, or Fair Labor Standards Act exemption test. Let me tell you what it is. You have to be paid at least $23,600 per year, or $455 per week. And I won't get too far into this because, like I said, it's going to be a couple of more days that we'll talk about this. But even that is about to change. It just hasn't been written into law yet. All right. But right now it's $23,600 per year, or $455 a week, paid on a salary basis, and perform exempt job level responsibilities. Okay. That is the Fair Labor Standards Act exemption test. So if you are like a warehouse employee, if you're working, like a manufacturing job, if you work in in a retail sales associate position or something like that, you're basically going to be paid as a non-exempt hourly employee. I told you most employees are actually non-exempt hourly. Okay. There's a lot that are salaried exempt because they're in professional jobs. They're in executive jobs. Okay, executive or professional jobs are typically going to fall under exempt and will meet that test. $23,600 per year. Nursing jobs, now it depends on the level of nursing jobs. Most nursing jobs are non-exempt hourly. I have a sister that's been a nurse for 30 years. Okay, so if you're talking about certified nursing assistant, not an actual nurse, like an LPN or a registered nurse, a CNA, that's an hourly job. That's an hourly job. A certified nursing assistant, CNA. So you're non-exempt hourly. Like I said, most employees are going to be non-exempt hourly in the United States. Okay? But good question. CNN or certified nursing assistants are typically non-exempt hourly employees. So in other words, you qualify for overtime. So if you're working more than 40 hours during a work week, say you had a hard work week and you worked 45 hours. Well, that 5 hours qualify you for overtime pay at time and a half. Okay. And even with company policies, if it's on a holiday, a lot of times companies will pay you double. Okay. Double overtime. But for regular old fashioned overtime, if you're working over 40 hours during a work week is counted as 7 days. Okay. You may not work 7 days, but the work week by FLSA standards is 7 days. Okay. If you work over 40 hours, you qualify for overtime as a non-exempt hourly employee. Okay. And if you have other questions, just put the questions in there. So you have a salary-based test. I told you what that is. I told you that there's 3 things that they look for, whether you're exempt or non-exempt, to determine which category that you're going to fall into. Again, there was how much you are paid, how you are paid, and what kind of work that you do. All right. Like I said, I got a lot of notes here. That's why I said I'm going to wind up doing a webinar on this so I can really dig into this and really get your questions and everything. This was a good question that Kiana asked that I wanted to at least begin to address on Periscope. Anybody have any questions while I'm looking at my notes? Something else about exempt that you should know. Generally, an employee paid on a salary basis, an exempt salary basis, okay, has a guaranteed minimum amount of money he or she can count on receiving any work week. So I've heard from other people who've said, well, Delmar, I work as exempt salary, but I may work a 60-hour week, but I still only get my regular pay. Well, that's very true. That's why you're exempt. If you fall under the category of executive duties or in executive roles or leadership roles like that or professional roles, you are going to be exempt. When I worked in regular corporate America, I was exempt all the time. I would work anywhere from 80 hours to however many hours during that pay cycle, but I was guaranteed the money. Even if I worked less than that 40 hours during that week as an exempt salary, I was still paid my regular money as though I had worked 80 hours. Hi, Lucrative Six. Thanks for coming back. I think I saw you yesterday as well. Thanks for coming into the room. We're talking about a little bit about exempt and non-exempt status. If you guys are liking what I'm saying, please give me some hearts. I really appreciate it. Let me know that you're still there. Share it with your audience. I appreciate that as well. I'm only looking at my notes. You guys know if you're on here on a regular basis, I'm always looking at my notes. Always looking at my notes because I want to make sure I give you some proper information. Okay. Let me see what else I want to say about this today, because like I said, this is a very heavy subject. That's why I'm going to do a webinar on it so we can really go back and forth. I know another part of that question that Kiana asked about was nothing wrong with no. I know that's real very. I keep telling folks, when you get over 40, honey, you just have to have some notes with you sometime. And see, my subject is kind of heavy a lot. Human resources. So, there's a lot of there's always a lot of paperwork and notes and stuff involved in human resources. So whether I'm sitting in corporate America or sitting in my car talking to you guys, human resources is still human resources. Okay, so another part of that question she asked was about meal times. Can they regulate meal times or can they regulate break times? Typically, the rule of thumb in a business is going to be if you work at least 6 hours during the course of your work time, then you're going to be given the opportunity for a lunch break. Sometimes that lunch break is 30 minutes. Sometimes that lunch break is 45 minutes or an hour. That really falls on the discretion of the company most times, depending on what kind of environment you're in. For instance, Memphis is a very logistics and manufacturing warehouse environment. And I know a lot of times those lunch breaks are only 30 minutes. In some cases, it may be 45 minutes because that's the lunch break rule that company has made, but they're still within guidelines of if you're working over 6 hours. If you know you're working over 6 hours, then you have to have at least a lunch break of at least 30 minutes. Now, as far as breaks are concerned, breaks are not mandated by the law. They be working us to death and only get 30. I know. I've been on jobs years before I had my career and stuff, years before that, where I was on jobs like 30 minutes, like about the time I got up from my desk or seat I was in and walked across the room to the lunch break room, I had already spent 15 minutes on my lunch break. So I was glad when I was salaried exempt, because it really didn't matter. It really didn't matter. I was still guaranteed the money that I was going to be paid for the time that I worked. If I ate in my car or ate, went to a restaurant and ate, or if I, ate and did work or whatever, as an exempt person, I was still going to be paid my amount of money that I was going to be paid. So exempt is not a bad way to go. However, but an employer cannot avoid a person being hourly just because they don't want to pay overtime pay. So you can't just make an employee exempt because you want to avoid overtime pay. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. You have to pass those rules. So if you have a professional like a doctor, obviously, a doctor, a pharmacist, a salesperson, those kind of people will be exempt. Okay? It's just an example. Okay, so talked about mealtime, just kind of gave you a rundown of what the FLSA looks at as far as the three rules that they go by, or the three, what am I trying to say? The three guidelines. That's the word I'm trying to get to. The three guidelines that they go by, okay? If you're exempt, again, you're going to be paid guaranteed money for the time in that pay period, okay? Usually it's 80 hours, right? You usually get 26 pay periods a year, because usually exempt people are paid bi-weekly or bi-monthly, however they put the language in their employee handbook. Okay. Anybody have any questions? Like I said, I'm going to wind up doing a webinar on this, but I wanted to begin to address it the next couple of days on Periscope since Kiana brought it up. It's a great question. Anybody have any questions out there? Let me see how many of y'all on here. Can we see how many on here? I got 13 live viewers. So as a CNA, can I work exempt? No. Certified nursing assistants do not meet those three rules of exempt, have exempt status. Actually, as a CNA, you want to stay hourly. I just let you know. You want to stay hourly. Yeah. But it doesn't meet the Fair Labor Standards Act rules of what all three rules of an exempt person. But as a CNA, you want to stay hourly because you want to get overtime pay. And I know how hard CNAs work. My mother used to be one. So I know how hard they work. I appreciate it. Trust me. Trust me. Anybody else have any questions? Let me see if there's anything else I want to touch on today. Like I said, I'm going to be talking about this over the next couple of days because it's such a heavy topic. I am going to do a webinar. You guys can connect with me on Facebook, Twitter, and of course here on Periscope at HR Brain for Hire. You can check out my website, hrbrainforhire.com. Okay, check out my store on there. It's like there's some great things on there, but I really would like for you to stay connected. Can't wait till I graduate this year. Been in school the last 2 years and working hard. Keep working. Keep working. When you finish, you're going to feel so good. Keep working. I encourage you. Don't stop. Keep going. Finish that. Take that baton and run with it. So good job on being in school and working and striving toward what your goals are for your life and for your business. Yes, endure to the end. Yes, it's not how you start. It is how you finish. Isn't that right, Eric? It's how you finish, not how you start. Anybody else have any questions? No questions? Yeah, amen. It's that Paulette Marie 29. Thanks for being in the room. I appreciate the heart. You replayers, I appreciate if you will heart me up. And if this is a subject that you definitely want to hear more about, I am going to do a webinar on it. So I got a few webinars I have in the pipeline that I want to extend to entrepreneurs and small business owners so we can have a longer dialogue than we can on Periscope. Because again, some of these subjects are heavy, but they're relevant. They're relevant to you as you're building your business, as you're growing as a business owner, as you bring in on your support through part-time employees or interns or contractors or full-time employees, it all plays a part in your foundation of building your business to be an employer of choice. An employer where people want to show up and come to work, where people want to help you with your dream and carry out your vision and support you in what you're doing. You're supporting them and supporting you. How about that? So you want to have a strong foundation, and you want to be doing things the proper way. Yesterday, my title was $83 million in back pay for 108,000 employees doing an audit a few years ago, back in 2013, had to be paid out $83 million because they was using contractors as employees, but didn't categorize them as employees. This thing can be real deep, but this is why I'm here. This is why I brought my 20 years of expertise to the small business and entrepreneur world. Yes, wow, Eric. Yes, $83 million. That's with an M. 108,000 people were misclassified as contractors, but being worked as employees. See, it will come back on you if you don't go ahead and do it right the first go round. I promise you, it'll save you a whole lot of money as you begin to grow your business, as you begin to grow your company and your organization. So it's good to have a resource like myself and other HR people too, not just me. I just happen to be on my own Periscope, and I'm an HR consultant, and I brought those 22 years of human resources to the small business world. So I'm going to stop rambling. I just want to kind of hit the highlights on that. I'm going to come back and talk about this a little bit more tomorrow, because I want to make sure, teach Chief HR, but girl, I'm trying. I'm learning myself, right? I'm trying, girl. But I will come back and talk a little bit more about this, but I really think it's going to require a webinar so I can really dig down a little bit deeper and take more questions and be more interactive. That's really the kind of conversation that I want to have with this, because I'm all about helping the small business owner and the entrepreneur help a little bit more. So I think I'm going to do that. So again, this is Delmar Johnson. I am your Chief HR Brain with HR Brain for Hire. Make sure you visit me, hrbrainforhire.com, and visit me on Twitter. Stay in touch with me on Periscope. And of course on Facebook, HR Brain for Hire. So I made it very easy for you to find me. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. I got to go finish running my errands. I'm always running errands and sitting in my car talking to y'all. So, so you're always on my mind. I appreciate everybody that hung with me. Make sure you share it with your audience and replayers. I appreciate you coming on here and listen to the replay. I will be talking some more about this week. So make sure you join me again tomorrow afternoon. I am signing off. Have a great day, y'all. Bye-bye.